When should you start using a prep center? What are some of the most important tips for working with a prep center? I asked these and other questions to 11 successful Amazon sellers to learn more about tips for working with a prep center as an Amazon arbitrage or wholesale seller. Let's see what tips they have for us today. My name is Samuel, and let's get down to business. Can you give us some tips about how to work with a prep center? And when should you look for a prep center?
You can do prep in-house or you can outsource it. There's pros and cons to both. I'd say if you're doing online arbitrage, it's a no-brainer if you don't live in a tax-free state, because you'll ultimately save just as much money in sales tax as you will pay a prep center. So I'd say that's always a good fit. If you're at scale, it may make more sense operationally to have your own warehouse, and it'll probably be a little less expensive than a prep center. However, you have to hire employees, maintain employees, fire employees, rent a physical space, which is overhead, utilities, insurance. There's a lot more to prep at scale than just doing it yourself. So I'd say any business could work with a prep center, and it's a decision you need to make whether you're going to handle that in-house or outsource it to another company. And every business is a little different. There's no right answer to that. But in working with a prep center, you definitely want a prep center that's organized, that has a system where you can track your inventory at any point. Our prep center uses a software where people can do that. They can see when their items are checked in, received at our prep center, shipped out. They can view their invoices very clearly, no hidden charges. And another feature I'd look for in working with a prep center is good communication. I used to be a customer of several prep centers earlier in my journey, and what drove me crazy was not being able to call anyone or message anyone. The only way I could get in touch was through a ticket system, and then I'd have to wait 2 or 3 days for an urgent problem. And it was just very inefficient communication. So I'd find a prep center that communicates with you in real time if needed, and you can reach someone in an emergency. That's what I'd look out for.
If you are thinking about doing a prep center and you're doing OA, generally tax-free prep centers are the way you want to be going. So we're talking like Montana, New Hampshire, Delaware, for example. I think even like New Jersey, you can do sneakers. There's certain tax-free areas there. So, and the reason why this is important is because if you're buying products over, I think it's about $25, and your prep fee is about $1.50, for example, the amount you're paying in sales tax to go to other places is generally more than the prep fee. So not only are you saving the time, you're also like someone else is doing the work for you at the same price you pay in sales tax. So that's a really big advantage. Now, the second thing I would recommend with prep centers, find one that is really recommended. It's really easy to make a prep center, but one that is recommended and does a great job and has probably been around for some time, has a track record of doing a good job. Unfortunately, when I started in Amazon, my first prep center that I did in the US, we shipped in stocks in October, it got into Amazon in February. So the whole Christmas was a complete write-off, which is like, oh my God. Well, I learned that lesson, and one of the key things we learned from that lesson is not just tracking how long it takes from the prep center to Amazon. We actually now encode in the SKU the purchase date of the product, and then when stock arrives in Amazon, then we measure the time between purchase and arrival on Amazon, because that does the full supply chain, which is from supplier to the warehouse and warehouse to Amazon, and we're tracking that measurable. And what's really interesting is we can start to see when our prep center declines, and we'll either A, look somewhere else, or B, obviously have the conversation with the prep center to turn it around.
Prep centers are extremely important in order to be able to scale your business. There's a lot of prep centers that have minimums, or they have subscriptions, or they have setup fees. And if you work with a prep center like that, you need to reach their minimum before you can actually start sending in products to them. For us at West Coast FBA Prep, we don't have a minimum, we don't have a subscription fee, we don't have any kind of monthly fees. So you can start using us right away. The key is if you are using a prep center and then you're actually gonna have free time that you're sitting in front of a TV watching Netflix, don't use the prep center. You should be using that time to actually work on your business. But if this is sort of a side hustle for you, or you're using your time wisely to work on your business and grow it, you always wanna outsource or automate. So outsourcing to a prep center right off the bat could be very beneficial for you.
So we're all retail arbitrage and we own our own prep center, but I often hire shoppers in other cities and I teach them to be their own prep center. But if you're starting out in online arbitrage, you need to know as a business owner when doing your own prep is costing you money. I felt the tension when I was starting out that if I was prepping, which is a job you can hire for less than $20 an hour, right? Then I was losing money because I wasn't buying profitable products. So when you feel that tension, I would say that's when you hire a prep center.
Some people never use a prep center, and some people use a prep center from day one. I think listing is something you should delegate sooner than later. If you're doing something like online arbitrage and you don't live in a sales tax-free state, you're paying 6% sales tax. So for every $100 you purchase OA, you're spending saving $6 to get that item delivered if you have a 6% sales tax state. So if you use a non-sales tax state, sales tax free state, a prep center that exists in that state, then you're saving the sales tax and essentially you're getting prep for free is one way to look at it. So it's really whenever you're comfortable, make sure to find a good prep center. If you're gonna go that route, make sure they're reliable, test them out just like anything else in business. Like don't hire somebody and assume that they're the one. You have to do a test trial first. Same with the prep center. If you're gonna use a prep center, send them 50 items and see how they do, how fast do they turn. And just know that any prep center at any point in time can become overwhelmed. So it is good to have an in-house operation if possible. It's really up to you. And I know a lot of wholesale guys at scale say, hey, if I'm prepping 10,000 items a month, I'm not comfortable paying 20 grand for prep, which is fine, fair enough. But at the same time, if you're paying for a warehouse, that might be anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000. You're probably at least paying $4,000 for somebody to be in there. So we're already at maybe $8,000, $5,000. At that point, is it worth it? So you have to kind of weigh it out for yourself. I personally, I'm roamer the roamer. I like to travel all over the place. So I use prep centers for all my products. I would rather not prep it myself.
For me, I think it depends on your state. If you're gonna pay like 9 to 10% tax on stuff, getting a prep center is great because you could get 10% extra margin. I know where some people live, they don't pay tax on clothing, they don't pay tax on shoes. So if you wanna get your stuff in quicker to Amazon and turn it around quicker, might not be a bad idea to do it yourself. I always recommend people do it themselves first just to know how it works, because when you're working with a prep center, you have to be able to tell them, hey, something seems off, like you're gonna have to polybag this, or why didn't you do this or that? So you should always know how to do it first before you outsource it. I like to say like around the 10, 15K in sales mark is a good way to do it. Because when you first start, you want to put all your money towards inventory because that's where you're going to make your money. And I also think it depends on how much you have to spend. So if you have only, let's say $5,000 to spend, you should probably prep yourself because like you need as much money as possible.
For inventory, you're saying?
Yeah, for inventory. But there will come a time when maybe like you could only spend $20,000. You could buy a lot more, so your time is worth more buying and letting someone else prep.
I run a prep center in Oregon at the beginning of 10 years ago. I kind of pretty quickly, I understand the use of a prep center, take away American Recook, gain back my time. However, I do recommend people to go through the pain, kind of things that you don't want to do involved in prepping the product, because you gain the knowledge so that actually in one sense, when you outsource the activity to the prep center, then you appreciate what the prep center can do for you. Because prep center in that sense is your business partner. So you work with your prep center, and also you need to communicate with your prep center. So that is another set of the skill as a seller. Understand time is limited. At the point that we need to accomplish, to scale up, to become more efficient, we need to learn to let go some of the things that we do. We know how to do. I haven't heard of people not want to do the prepping, but you need to let go and let other people take over, and then you trust them. Of course, finding a reputable prep center, it takes some time. But outsourcing the prep center, I think after you have some experiences, then you need to start looking out for prep center. Specifically, if you're doing arbitrage, then a prep center and the limited number of the United States, then you can look into those first. If you're doing wholesale, of course, any prep center probably can help you with that.
My recommendation is always to people who just start in the business, do yourself. You're gonna understand a lot in the process. If you're already in the thousands of units, you can find a prep center so you can continue growing your business. You don't have to focus on the preparation of the shipment. But then once you reach of your prep expense to the point when you can actually rent the warehouse, hire the people. To give you an example, if you have a prep center that you're paying $20,000, you are ready to just go and find a location and hire a couple of people to work for you. That's my recommendation.
I've done both. I've used the prep center and I have my own warehouse now. I think in the beginning, a prep center is very beneficial. Obviously, if you're an overseas seller, you have no ability to prep and ship yourself, then a prep center, that's your only choice.
It's no-brainer, right?
Yeah, it's their only choice. But if you're here in the States and you're selling on the Amazon US platform, in the beginning, it's very helpful, but as you scale up, it becomes very expensive.
When do you have your own warehouse? When do you decide to use the prep center?
Your ability to know your numbers numbers and measure objectively is key to this business. You need to know how much it costs you to use the prep center per item versus having your own warehouse and your own employees and having to pay for the materials and things like that, their time and labor. But if you can objectively measure how much it costs per item, then whenever you hit that tipping scale, that's the best time to prep it yourself.
90% of our prep goes to our warehouse, but we do have some prep center relationships. And anytime you're communicating with a prep center, you want to ask a few questions. Do you have any additional fees, right? Are there pallet receiving fees, pallet out fees, monthly pallet fees? Like, what are all those fees? Also, what's your turnaround time? Can you guarantee me a 96-hour turnaround time, or do I have to wait 3 weeks? And then the third important question would be discrepancy reports. If a prep center is receiving your inventory, damages, missing items, overages, that needs to be communicated with the vendor, typically within 48 hours. But a prep center sometimes will take 3-4 weeks to get that information.
For a lot of people, if you're just trying to do online arbitrage, I think getting used to the prep and ship process and knowing how it works is a good first step. But if you want to not have to do prep and ship, once you know how that works and have some knowledge of it, then you can outsource prep and ship pretty easily and pretty quickly to a prep center. I think for new sellers, they can do it probably after their first $1,000 to $5,000 in sales once they understand it. And if you're more experienced and you just realize you have a lot of stuff that you have to prep and ship, then doing it as soon as you're able to transfer everything over is going to help you to grow and scale from there.
All right, I hope you enjoyed watching the video and learned something new for your Amazon business. Make sure to follow the people in this video. The links are in the description below. Be sure to use BQool Repricer. Starting at just $25, which is less than a cup of coffee per day, you'll be able to win the buy box 24/7, boosting your sales and profits. Start with a 14-day free trial. See the results for yourself. I'll see you in our next video.